Welcome back to the Travel Coach Network podcast. It is I, Sahara Rosabor, the founder of the Travel Coach Network and the creator and instructor of the Travel Coach Certification Program. I am very excited today to introduce you to our three guests. We have the Lost Girls, and in June of 2006, the three friends and media professionals, Jennifer, Holly, and Amanda, made a collective pact to quit their jobs and embark upon the ultimate adventure, a year-long around-the-world trip. Still, after nearly 2 years of planning and saving by taking freelance assignments and selling some of their belongings, they finally left New York City and everything that was familiar behind. They journeyed across 4 continents and more than a dozen countries. They shared all of their experiences on their blog, lostgirlsworld.com. And in 2008, they signed on with HarperCollins to turn their tales into a travel memoir, which hit shelves in May of 2010. Soon after, the entertainment rights to the book were purchased by Warner Brothers Studio as a feature film, and later by producer Jerry Bruckheimer as a scripted TV series. Wow, I am so excited to unpack all of this. Holly and Jennifer and Amanda, thank you so much for being here with me today. It is such a joy. Tell us, how did this all begin?
Well, thanks for having us, Sahara. This is Holly. So the Lost Girls all began with a trip, of course. I was working at Self Magazine with Amanda, and she invited me to go on a trip with her to Argentina and her then roommate, Jen, who I did not know. And I said yes. I don't know if they expected me to, but I said yes. And that really changed the course of my life, that one decision. It was kind of serendipitous because we discovered that we had a very similar travel style. A lot of times, you don't really know what to expect when you're traveling with people, but we all really loved exploring new places and learning about culture and loved being outside in nature too. So that trip turned into like us tasting food at the local market, learning about flamingo dancing, also being outside and hiking to a Guazú Falls, which is really where the idea for the Lost Girls trip was born. I think it was Amanda who threw out this idea, like, what if we quit our jobs and traveled together for a year? It sounded like a fantasy, but we did make a collective pact to quit our jobs together in June 2006 and embark on this year-long trip. This was before the Great Resignation was happening, obviously, and when employees were leaving their jobs in droves to really figure out, like, were they living in line with their values? So after 2 years, like you said, we had a side hustle, we were freelance writing, we were selling our belongings, we were meeting to plan. We left and we went to South America, India, Dubai, Southeast Asia, New Zealand, Australia. And this was before Instagram, Facebook had just come out. We didn't have cell phones. And so it was really this amazing opportunity to really be able to unplug.
Yeah, I started my journey in 2010 when I graduated university. That's when I started backpacking. And even then in 2010, I still had a paper map and a flip phone that didn't turn on for service. So I can only imagine in 2008, back in the early 2000s, what the type of travel was like back then. Where do you think are you grateful for that journey being during that time frame? Or do you think that you're like, has it ever occurred to you like, well, I wish we traveled today with all the technology and all the apps and everything that we have? What's your thoughts on that?
I could definitely answer that because I was I still am very much of a travel purist. So I say all the time, thank God that we didn't have cell phones and computers and social media. I mean, I was a TV person and Amanda and Holly were the journalists, the magazine writers, the editors. So when we started this blog, honestly, I was kind of kicking and screaming. I'm like, do we really need to work? Like, we're quitting our jobs. We're spending our life savings on this trip. I'm obviously thrilled that we did start the blog, but, we had to go to ancient, internet cafes with these old computers just to get a blog up. It was very difficult, but I'm so grateful for the fact that it was before social media. I mean, we were just bumbling along figuring this out. We didn't know what really bloggers weren't even a big thing. Influencers were years and years away. And we just kind of went in it with our hearts first. And fortunately, we were at a time where blogging was new. So we were on the cutting edge, even though we had not intended that to be. But I really think we had the most pure, really real, authentic experience because we didn't have all that. And personally, I still try to unplug when I travel. It's more difficult now, but I honestly think that allowed us to focus on just the journey and each other. I mean, we weren't like this when we were on trains and planes and rickshaws. We were talking to each other. We had nothing else to distract us. And I think the best conversations and the best lessons that we learned throughout the whole year came because we were connected to each other. We were not looking at anything else. So I'm personally very grateful.
Yeah. Jen definitely didn't want initially to have our heads in the computers. We brought a Panasonic laptop with us at the time. And, Holly and I were doing writing. It's what we do as journalists. But I think we can all say now we're glad we did it in the way that we did. So we were able to stay connected and have that blog, but we didn't have to be self-conscious about, needing to take pictures or look a certain way because, if you look at our blog now, or you look at those pictures, we pure would be a word, Jen.
We wore the same outfit. Like we had 3 outfits.
We were not cute.
Yeah, but traveling's not meant to be cute, right?
Yeah,
it's like, it's a whole nother persona. I always say when I come back from traveling, it's a whole nother persona that I morph into the moment I get on a plane with my backpack and I'm now, I was a solo traveler. I didn't travel with a group of friends, but when you travel, there's different decisions you have to make and problems you need to solve. And your awareness is heightened in different ways, especially in certain destinations. As a group of friends and women traveling, how did that work in the dynamics of 3 people coming together to travel? Is someone better at problem solving? And, do you all have different hats that you wear? How does that look?
Yeah, absolutely. We all took on different roles. It kind of just naturally fell to what our strengths were. I maybe initially brought up the idea for the trip, but definitely I think drove some of the initial getting us out the door and getting our lives kind of wrapped up in New York. But I'm not as much of a details person as both Jen and Holly, and I think they were actually more inspired about what to do on the actual trip. Jen had a lifelong dream to work with children in Kenya, and Holly had wanted to go to an ashram. I had some idea that I wanted to go on the Inca Trail. So we all brought our ideas to the table, but when it came to things even like safety or who was going to try to negotiate something, in a tough situation, that was me. My nickname was the regulator. Good at getting things done that way, but terrible at detail. So that's why my best buds were there and definitely helped with all those things.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And as an overview, what do you think travel has done for your friendship? Do you see challenges that it made it face? Did you see tremendous growth and depth? I mean, you 3 are still here today, best friends, so something good came out of it too, right?
Yeah, I'll take that one too, guys. I mean, definitely it deepened our friendship. I mean, Jen and I had known each other a long time. Holly and I were work buddies. As Holly said, they hadn't known each other before traveling together when we went to Argentina. But we really, it bonded us in a way I think none of us could have really expected. We really relied upon each other. I mean, it wasn't really a survival situation, but you had to rely upon one another like family, like an extension of yourself, because you're getting from A to B and your safety really did depend on it. So it brought us very close together on the trip. We all ended up not right away, but eventually all moving to the same town, Hoboken, right outside of New York. And then continuing our journey, which had changed and evolved because it was more the journey of having a family and got to participate in that with one another. So it just, all of it served to bring us closer together as people. And we're still always in touch. We don't live in the same area anymore, all of us. But I think we all feel the others are essential. and we're constantly in touch.
Yeah, I love that. There's a lot of people who rather travel with friends versus there's the solo travelers who prefer to be on their own. But there's a lot of research out there that shows just how powerful travel can be on building relationships and deepening bonds and learning more about one another. So whether you're a partner or you're with your friends. So I think you guys are a prime example in that. I noticed on your website, you say that travel is one of the best ways to break free from autopilot, a journey of self-discovery, and to get a fresh perspective on what matters most. Can you, why do you believe in this, or can you give some examples?
Yeah, I mean, we already touched on the fact that when we did this round the world trip, we didn't, even have cell phones or social media. But now, today, especially as we travel with each other and with family and friends, it's just, we're bombarded, right? We're busy working moms, we have full-time jobs, we have kids, husbands, partners, we're around the clock, like just busy, connected. And, even more so than when we traveled before. And you just cannot think, you cannot stop and think, what's my priority? What's my self-actualization? Like, that's so far away from your thought when you're just in your day to day. And I think starting with before the round the world trip, the three of us always traveled as a means individually as self-discovery. And we were so lucky to come together and figure out that if we did not, we're go-getters, all three of us in our own way. We just go and go and go. I mean, Holly would be like waking up at 9, like, let's go jogging and running and take yoga. And, or I'd be like,
I don't do that anymore.
I know, right? We're just, in our careers and our lives, we're go-getters. And even today, when we travel together, it's literally the only time that you can stop what you're doing and set aside a dedicated window to just push all of that away. And I think that's so important, especially where we are now in society, coming off of COVID, living in, a very challenging time. Like, we have to stop for our mental health, our physical health. But we don't, right? We tell ourselves like we should do this, but until we book that trip and get on the road, like it's so hard to force yourself to do that. So every time I travel with these girls, with my, husband, my kids, like I disconnect even today. And we talk about big things when we travel. The three of us are literally trying to solve all of our life's problems, like in a 3-day trip. I mean, we have agenda items practically where we're like, okay, we have to solve this together. And as women, we need community. We're very social creatures. We need our community. I need weigh-in from everybody in my tribe to before I make a decision. So that's really what travel has become for us, especially for me when I'm struggling. I just have to plan a trip. And we met all these other people, we met people who are living lives completely differently, especially as Americans traveling in the 2000s. I mean, early 2000s, we were exposed to people who traveled with barely any money, traveled all the time. It wasn't a one and done 5-day vacation that we get here. It was a way of life, and it was infused through, and from literally, we met people who were 15 to 80. I mean, there was like an 80-year-old couple hiking the Inca Trail with us. And it was just eye-opening to realize that this could be forever, and it should be forever.
And Sahar, I just wanted to add, you said, that you have heightened awareness when you're traveling. I really think that travel is just a very intentional way to be in the present moment. You can do that in a variety of ways, but travel just really kind of pushes you to be in the present. And when you're in the present, I think that just makes you feel more alive, more connected, and also naturally more introspective. So I think for us, that's how travel really helps push us to get a fresh perspective on things. And I think it's so important for everybody to be able to take time out and, maybe not travel for a year, but to live life intentionally, I think is so important.
Yeah. And I mean, that's what the Travel Coach Network's all about, is to travel with intention. As we know, travel is a really powerful tool that can help us reach certain personal goals, or whether it's wellness goals, or, you know, for me, I know I've always struggled with anxiety and depression when I was right out of university, right when I decided to start traveling. Did I think travel was going to, you know, help me and heal me? To the extent that it did, no. But I had hoped that, you know, there was something greater out there for me to figure out what happiness and look like for me, and everything too. So I think a lot of us unintentionally use travel as a coping mechanism or a healing mechanism for a wide variety of reasons in our life. But this whole growth in travel coaching and intentional travel has really shifted the narrative around how we view and use travel, and I hear so many different stories. So I love hearing that from the three of you, of just, you know, how impactful travel has been on you, even to the current day. Now let's just start talking about your blog. I'm very curious to know, when Holly, you said Amanda, it was your original idea to start this blog. And this is before the whole blogging craze came about. And I mean, I remember still having to go pay money to use a computer in a hostel. And, you know, if I was lucky, they gave you like free 20 minutes or something. But I started a blog just to let my mom know I was alive in places, because I didn't have a cell phone. Yeah. And so did you know from a strategic standpoint that it was going to become hopefully something that it did? Or what was your thoughts around that?
Yeah, no, we did not know what it would become. So the blog started because I was trying to figure out how, instead of emailing like all the people that would want to keep up with us, you know, between the three of us, we had a lot of friends, we had our family. I'm like, that's going to take so much time. I wonder if we could start a website. I don't know if Jen and Holly, you remember, that was like the original idea. Like, let's code a website. And they were like crazy. And I'm sure through just like Googling or Yahooing or whatever we were doing at the time in 2005, I came upon Blogger, which had just really kind of started. I think Google had just bought it. And I was like, oh, we could like put our stories here and just write them once. And then everybody could see what we're doing. We don't have to like write to everybody. So that was really like where it started. And I think we're all storytellers, the three of us by nature. And so as we sat down to, you know, kind of collectively share our stories, they became a little bit more like, you know, something you might read in a book or something you might read in a magazine. And just, that's how we wrote. And I think what happened is it moved from just being our family and friends who were watching it to other travelers who were on the road at the same time, and then people who knew them, and it kind of grew. And what we found so surprising, less surprising now looking back on it, was that it was really inspiring to a lot of other young people and people of all ages, really, who maybe couldn't travel right then and there, but, you know, they were going to be graduating from school, or they'd been in a job for 10 years and they were feeling stuck. And so a lot of them related to our stories because we weren't, you know, gap year travelers. We were women who are in our mid to late 20s who are traveling. I think they liked the idea of the friendship. And then the idea of what a lost girl was expanded beyond the three of us to, you know, men and women and people of all ages who, you know, wanted to get lost and to have a period of discovery of themselves and the world while they were on the road.
Where did you see the shift in your blog from going from the three of you sharing your adventures to it becoming a platform for others to share their stories, and then from there into the attention that it got from HarperCollins?
Well, I think, you know, we thought the blog would end, right? The blog was started to kind of chronicle our around the world trip so that our parents could see it. But we got so many letters, like Amanda said, people writing into us that the trip really resonated. And I think we hit a cultural nerve. We hit a nerve with people wanting to share their own stories of travel, of life transition. People were really interested in expanding their understanding of themselves and the world by getting lost in it. And I think travel really helps people see like a common humanity. There was something there then. And I love that it especially resonated with women, because I think travel writing has traditionally been dominated by men. And I think we need more women's voices in the mix in a world that's still so far from equality. So I think all of those things just kind of converged, and particularly women travel writers wanted a platform. And so we provided that platform for them. And the blog, to our surprise, kept going, but it wasn't our voices anymore. It was this collection of voices. And then, Amanda, if you want to talk about how HarperCollins happened.
Yeah, and I'll let Jen talk a little bit about what happened after the book. So the expansion of the Lost Girls blog as like a network for women actually happened a little bit after the book situation. So I actually just pulled up an email, just in trying to remember like exactly how this all went down. I would have told you if I hadn't read that email that somebody had discovered the blog, like an agent had discovered the blog. But what it was is a friend of ours who used to be in journalism with us actually had originally intended to go on the trip with us. She didn't. She ended up moving to Atlanta, and she became the editor-in-chief of a broadsheet like newspaper called Skirt, which I don't know if that's around anymore, but we wrote an article for Skirt while we were traveling about our travels. And that is where both a producer for CNN saw that and filmed us in Sydney, sharing the story of our journey with Sanjay Gupta. It was like a 10-minute segment. And then also this young agent from Writers House, who's an agency here in New York, saw that and said, hey, have you guys considered writing a book about your journey? So we were like, oh, wow, that would be so cool. Like, we're in Sydney. How do we write a book proposal? So we like went to Borders in Sydney and like sat down and didn't have enough money to like buy the books about writing a book proposal. And then we decided that we were still traveling. Let's wait. So we put the books down, we finished the trip, and we came back together in New York, wrote a book proposal, just what felt right to us. And then it really sparked the imagination, I think, of a lot of publishers. So there were like 6 or 7 publishers trying to get those rights. We sold them to HarperCollins, and then they turned it into the beautiful book that we have now.
When it comes to your publishers, or when it comes to so if an agent came to you, what did that process look like? An agent came to you and then you wrote the proposal. How did you know how to gain the attention of other publishers?
The agent, I believe,
Oh
right?
yeah, no, I mean, we got really lucky, but I mean, honestly, it was a different time, right? So, I was on the TV side, and so I saw a lot of trends at this particular moment. We're like talking like late, like 2007, 2008, and because blogs were so new, and that was a big source for writers, and that went all the way up into Hollywood. So when we did get this agent's interest, I mean, we were so green. We had no clue. I mean, like Amanda said, we were getting books about writing book proposals, and we were figuring it out. But once we got connected with Writers House, we had an amazing agent, Ken Wright, and he really helped guide us, and we did our own pitching, right? I remember going from publisher to publisher and pitching, and what was so amazing was that we would walk into these rooms, and it would be like kind of the bigwig executives and a table full of young women, and they would say everyone wanted to be in on this pitch because they want to make this book. There were young girls in their 20s that were like asking to be in these meetings, which then really made us realize this is so much bigger than us. Like, I hate to sound hokey, but we're like, we have to write this book to inspire other women and people, men, and we're writing to us too, saying we're lost boys, and we want to do this. So we were able to get in front of a lot of publishers, and we ended up at HarperCollins. We felt that was the best choice for the story that we wanted to tell. And that just really spiraled into something we couldn't have anticipated. I mean, there was a writer's strike around that time. So Hollywood was looking to books for new material. So we had an option from Warner Brothers Features that came through our agent for a film before the book was written. They bought it on the proposal. I mean, we're like storytellers, writers, marketers, producers. So I think we really did throw everything into that proposal. We wrote it in the way that we knew we wanted the book to be positioned, right? We wanted it to be positioned as, this is a journey, this is a friendship, this is a story about self-discovery. You don't have to go around the world for a year. We did. We backpacked, we lived in hostels, we lived in huts, but it was bigger than that. It was about women connecting together, those friendships that women have are just so special in helping us to figure out who we are. So I think it resonated, and multiple options came out of that, where different producers found us. An executive producer who worked for Jerry Bruckheimer read the book. She's the one who pushed to try to get it made into a series. So it really just had a life of its own. But I think some of it was luck, and some of it was the time frame in which we were living. 2008 was the recession. People were losing their jobs. But also, rediscovering kind of what their priorities are. Every time there's a big shakeup in society, people rethink who it is that they are and what they want their lives to look like. So I think there was a lot of just convergence of those things happening at once.
Yeah, I'm a big believer that timing is everything. And it sounds like a lot of that kind of just lined up for the three of you. But a couple things. One, as you just said, Jennifer, that whenever a big shakeup happens, or that time, it was a perfect time back then where people were rethinking. And I think that's exactly what we just saw through the pandemic as well. We're seeing now, you hear this great resignation, and now this desire for remote work, and digital nomads are on the rise, and people being able to take control over their happiness and their well-being and their time and their energy and where they spend their money, and in the tourism industry in particular. And that's what I'm a huge proponent of, is getting the tourism and hospitality industry to really wake up and realize how deep and meaningful travel is to people. And it's time to go back to those roots versus staying stagnant and doing and selling travel the way it has been done for so long. So being that disruptor, because I think there's that prime opportunity every time the world goes around and we have something like a big shakeup happen, to get more creative and to get outside the box, especially in a world when it comes to travel, when it's so personal. Because as you were saying, there's those 20-something-year-old girls, women, who are just scratching to get into that boardroom for these pitches, is because it's like, why do you think that is? Why do people think people are so drawn to travel? It's a common bond, it's a common love that so many people have. And I think that your story was kind of that catalyst to opening people's eyes to say, hey, there could be more that you can do in your life, and look at how powerful travel can be for all of you. And what about this travel? I read that the Travel Channel, you became the girlfriend getaway gurus. What was that all about?
That was, again, this point in time, and also this resonance that was so beyond the three of us. So we were speaking at a travel expo in DC, and a travel editor there knew about our book, came to the expo. She was working there at Travel Channel. And at the time, Samantha Brown was the only female voice in travel, writing and travel television. She was it. And obviously she was so important, to us in terms of the fact that you could do this as a career, because that was not something we considered. And so, the editor from Travel Channel came and just said, I wanted to meet you. I think there's more to your story. You've written this book, but what else are you doing? I had gone back to television. Holly and Amanda had different career paths that they were on. And we kind of weren't sure, what are we doing with this? And thankfully she saw what we had been saying in our book of like, this is a lifestyle. You have to infuse travel and adventure, even if you're sitting in your own neighborhood, like find those ways to tap into that. And she just loved the fact that we were three women that traveled together. That was pretty unique. And I think that people were looking for that advice. Like, what makes a trip a trip? What's your why for travel? Are you traveling for adventure, self-actualization, spirituality? Are you traveling alone with a group? What kind of traveler are you? So really, we tapped that girlfriend getaway market, because there were a lot of women who wanted to take trips with their girlfriends, but didn't know where to start. And so the triple G, the girlfriend getaway gurus, came out of that. But we did so much content. We went in New York City, where we lived, to film. We went to Borneo. We wrote a lot of articles. We listened to our audience. We had this collective on our website. So we were, really like trying to curate what it was that was on the minds of women. And it, it was successful. We were extremely lucky.
What years were those with the Travel Channel?
It spanned quite a while. I mean, I
Maybe
think,
2010, right?
Yeah, so
Somewhere
I
around
think we started
2010.
then. Because
yeah,
that
it
was
was
when the book was published. So it was like probably
Yeah.
2020. Actually, Borneo, I
2011?
can tell you, because I started one of my
It was
jobs.
2012, right?
Yeah, 2012. It went through 2012.
It
Yeah.
just seems like you ladies have done so much, and it's like, but it seems like it hasn't been that long of a time frame, but you've
Yeah.
accomplished so much that stemmed from your blog. And it's really exciting that you have a brand new website up. Do you want to tell us what are you, two questions. What are you all doing now? And also, what is the goal with your website? Who is it for and what's it all about?
Who wants to take that?
I was like, oh, we're quiet for the first time ever.
Well, I have to give Jen so much credit. Jen was the driver of the relaunch of the website. She felt, the one that was there hadn't been changed since, the time of the book. And we have had so much conversation since the time of the book of like, who are we now? We none of us want that period of our lives to be in the rearview mirror. Our lives have changed. All of us have gotten married, we've had kids. When your kids are very small, it's actually really tested the resolve of the Lost Girls and the theory of it of like, oh, you should infuse travel into your everyday life and your everyday world, or at least it did when the kids are very small. But we've all really, I think, been successful at finding ways to travel with one another. We come together at least once a year and do something, even if it's not very far away. Our most recent trip was to New Orleans in December, just before the holidays, which was amazing. And then taking our families and helping them to discover, what we find so special about travel. I think Jen, actually both of you have probably done even more than me. And my travel tends to be really local. I recently bought a place in upstate New York, and I've been fixing that up and taking the kids to do things more locally. And Jen, you've had some pretty amazing adventures with your littles. Where have you gone?
My gosh. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing is it's hard when your kids are super little. We definitely have evolved. I think that's why we did relaunch the website. We're always Lost Girls Forever, but we now have kind of a second title. We call ourselves the Vagabonds, kind of these vagabond moms, because they're different phases of our kids' lives. When they were really little, it was hard to figure out travel, but not only did we stick to our pact, the three of us, to travel once a year together. But we have really, brought that spirit of adventure to our children's lives. I took the kids to Iceland last year. My husband, thank God, loves to travel as well. But, we popped them in a car. They went hiking, went to, under waterfalls. And, it's just, we keep trying to stick to that. But even, locally, I'm right outside of New York City in Hoboken. And so, I want to expose my kids to culture, even if that's just walking around the Lower East Side or Chinatown, or, taking them to a museum. So I think, our website now and our Lost Girls kind of brand is really just that, entering that next phase. How do we help people stay inspired when they're in a totally different life phase? We're now in our 40s, we have kids, we have families, we're very busy, with our careers. So how do we keep doing that? So we are starting to really share our story again, and all the trips we have taken since, people ask, what have you been up to? Because our website was outdated. So we've really updated it to share all of these adventures and also bring in our community again. We love the travel community. We're still close to so many people in it. So we're looking forward to just doing more in that space.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So as we wrap it up here, I always like to end the episode with a fun fact. So I don't know if there's a group one, or we can go individually on a fun fact, and it doesn't have to be travel or business related, about yourself. Does anyone have one?
So something that I do for fun on the side is human design readings. So I love giving Jen and Amanda their readings. I do it for my colleagues and for my friends. It's just something I got interested in.
That's interesting. I've heard the topic. I haven't dove too much into it before. How about Amanda or Jennifer?
Yeah, I'm trying to decide if my fun fact should be, I think I've mentioned before that when I was younger, when I was 9, I trained with Bella Caroli and his wife, Marta Caroli, who were the coaches of Mary Lee Retton. So got to do that as a kid. My more recent interesting thing is I mentioned the place upstate I bought, but I've gotten really into like the whole fixer upper thing. I think I've watched way too much HGTV in the last few years. So like my adventure is in like tearing down bathrooms and putting them back together again. And it's been a blast.
Yeah, I mean, I think the girls know this. I'm such a TV film person, but I'm obsessed with like dystopian everything, dystopian books, movies, films. I always want to, take trips based on like these crazy destinations I see, in TV and movies. I also am really good at playing Bob Marley on the kazoo. That's a completely random fun fact.
I love those random ones.
All of my friends who have experienced it will probably roll their eyes, but I like to play Bob Marley on the kazoo.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. Tell our audience, where can they continue to follow you, see your website? Where can they learn more about the Lost Girls?
So the Lost Girls URL is lostgirlsworld.com. We have relaunched the blog and we'll be starting to update our adventures there. And we are on social. I'm not sure if there's a way for your readers to find that.
You can say it out loud. I'll put the links in the.
Yeah, so I think it's lostgirls_world. We were a little late to the Instagram party. So lostgirls_world, which is our Instagram handle. And then Facebook and Twitter is just Lost Girls World.
Wonderful. Well, Jennifer, Holly, and Amanda, I want to thank you so much for being here on the TCN podcast. It was a joy chatting with you and hearing about your journey. It really is inspiring.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for all the work you do too, to keep travel out there.
I appreciate it. Thank you. And everyone, be sure to follow us on the Travel Coach Network.com and come give us a hello at the Travel Coach Network on Instagram. We look forward to having you in our Facebook TCN Global Community and hopefully having you as a guest on our podcast. The links for the Facebook community, your free beginner's guide to travel coaching, and the link to all of the Lost Girls social media and website are all found in the show notes. If you know of anyone who might be interested in becoming a travel coach, please be sure to send them our way to our podcast. We truly appreciate it. And until next time, my fellow wanderers, bye for now.